What is up, Raider Nation, fantasy football fans? It is week 2. We made it to week 2. And the Raiders have our second straight home opener, but this time in Vegas against the Arizona Cardinals. And it is worth mentioning an Arizona Cardinals team without Andy Isabella, without a 100% healthy Zach Ertz, with no DeAndre Hopkins, no Rondale Moore, not 100% J.J. Watt. So there's a lot to look at here. Let's start with the Raiders defense. It's a good matchup this week because they're missing a lot of their weapons, but Kyler's improv scares me a little bit, and those kind of quarterbacks tend to feast against the Raiders defense, and we're missing Trayvon Merrick and Denzel Perryman. Both are crucial starters on this defense, and it's more so that I think there are better defenses to stream right now than there are reasons not to start the Raiders. I just think you could stream a better defense, and the Raiders, even with this easy matchup, just aren't a top 15 just yet. Especially after last week, actually the pressure doesn't show everything, but we weren't able to sack Justin Herbert, weren't able to get to him, but we got a lot of pressure on him. We were 4th in pass rush win rate, so that is something to look at. The Cardinals have a significantly worse O-line, but a significantly more mobile quarterback. So I think those things kind of offset to me, and I just wouldn't start them this week. Let's move on to Derek Carr, coming off one of the worst performances of his career. 3 bad picks, 2 pretty bad fumbles on the last drive, both recovered by the offense. But regardless, was just kind of getting back into the rhythm, looked a little rusty. I think he bounces back this week. He's got a very, very good matchup against Marco Wilson, Byron Murphy Jr., 2 dudes that just gave up over 350 yards to Patrick Mahomes, 5 touchdowns. Didn't look so great, but Budda Baker is still obviously a problem. He anchors that defense. But now you have to pick and choose your matchups, and I think Carr's going to dial it back a little bit, get back into his rhythm, and I think he bounces back. It's hard not to against his secondary, but if he doesn't, then there's real cause for concern. Regardless, I'm just going to say Derek is a borderline starter. I would still start him in super flex leagues, keep him as a QB2, but if you're in a pickle this week and you need a quarterback, Derek Carr is not a bad option at all against this Cardinals defense. Now let's move on to the running game. Josh Jacobs, 5.7 yards per carry, not bad. The only thing is he didn't get a lot of carries. But Brandon Bolden, who did eat up a large chunk of that committee role, is out this week, or at least doubtful. I don't think he's going to play, which means we might see the emergence of Zamir White finally. He didn't have any opportunities last week like I thought he would, but I still say Jacobs is better suited in the flex. But if they like what they saw, and they should because he looked healthy and he looked quick, he forced a lot of missed tackles, 5.7 yards per carry, not bad. And if he gets that volume of touches, then obviously Raiders fans know Jacob gets better as the game progresses. He just needs those touches. But he didn't get those last week, and I'm not sure he's going to again this week. However, the Cardinals defense did just allow a lot of fantasy points to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I don't think is as good as Jacobs. So it depends on that committee really and what the coaches decide to do. But I would say Jacobs is due for a big game coming up here. But still, I think better suited in the flex. Wouldn't put him at an RB1 or an RB2 if you don't have to. Now let's move on to the big 3, the obvious ones. Davante Adams with a fantastic debut, 141 yards, 10 receptions, a touchdown. Was targeted 17 times. That is just absurd. But obviously if Carr plays better, those numbers could go up, which is crazy. I think Carr will spread the ball out a little bit more, so I don't think we're going to see 17 targets again. But we could see around 140 yards again. That would not surprise me whatsoever, especially since he's going to be covered by Marco Wilson. Darren Waller, if you even try to put Budda or any of those safeties on him, it is not going to go well. Obviously, Darren Waller didn't have a bad game last week, 79 yards, but he also was on the reception end of 2 would-be touchdowns that Carr threw interceptions on. So if he had, or I guess 1 interception and 1 thrown behind Waller, that should have been an interception, or should have been a touchdown. But if you take that into account, obviously Waller's still that guy. He's still getting open, finding ways to get open, and this secondary is nowhere near the Chargers secondary, so I think he's got a better chance. Same thing as Hunter Renfrow. He's not going to have Bryce Callahan on him this week. And Derek Carr threw a pick when targeting Renfrow last week. And Carr was kind of gunslinger mentality this last week and was throwing it deep and trying to throw it in the middle of the field and making a lot of bad decisions. And I think he's going to go back to that safety blanket, and I think the coaches are probably going to want him to dink and dunk a little bit more and be more efficient. And so I think Hunter Renfrow is going to start getting those targets again this week. So I would put him in the slot, borderline starting running wide receiver 2. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up for just the fantasy outlook this week. Let's go, Raider Nation. Let's get back in that win column. All right, let's go.